Asperger's is an identification on the autism spectrum, and it's something that's no longer used in the new diagnostic statistic manual, which just came out. So autism spectrum disorder is the new diagnosis, and it encompasses autistic disorder, pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified, and Asperger's disorder. So it's technically a spectrum disorder, which means that there's a variety of different ways it impacts a student or a child.
Sometimes I don't know how to act in certain social situations, and I sometimes I just don't, and maybe I stammer at times. I just picked up on that, but it's just sometimes I don't know how to describe Asperger's because I've just lived with it my whole life.
Other students give me dirty looks almost all the time, and it makes me feel like dirt. In class, messing up often bothers me more than it does to others. And people think it's childish, especially when I stomp the desk and table. If I'm in a bad mood from that mistake, people think I'm trying to make them angry and laugh as I pass by them. When somebody tries to get me to talk to another student, I get nervous, mostly because I'm scared to say the wrong thing and end up with being judged.
Autistic disorder is the kids that are much more impacted. They typically have not a lot of language. They are often nonverbal, which means they can't communicate using words. You usually will see that they have something going on at a much younger age. Usually by the age of 2 is when they're diagnosed if they have more typical autistic disorder symptoms. So those are kids that they don't develop language, and they're much more impacted by the sensory piece, the cognitive piece, and they have a harder time functioning in society independently. Kids that are pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified are usually kids that have some of those symptoms, and they will have somewhat of a language delay, but they won't be as cognitively impaired as a kid with autistic disorder. Kids with Asperger's are on the highest functioning end of the spectrum, and those are kids that do not have a language delay. So oftentimes you won't see the symptoms until they're about 6 or 8 years old, and that's when they're diagnosed. That's something that can be kind of hard because they should get early intervention, because early intervention is huge for kids with autism. So Asperger's will impact a kid in many different ways. Probably the ways that you'll see the most will be social situations, because they often have a hard time reading social cues. They usually don't know how to appropriately interact with their peers because they just don't get it. They don't understand social situations.
I can't tolerate some certain things because I just can't. I don't know what exactly I don't tolerate. Maybe sarcasm to some extent I don't have much tolerance for. Sometimes I don't care, and other times depends on the situation.
Lastly, what they don't know is that I'm very friendly and shy, and the girl who wants to be a video game designer. On top of that, I am very caring and talented, and I have feelings just like everyone else in the school. I give big thanks to all my friends because they are the reason why I'm still here today.
They won't notice body language as much. Another way that they're impacted is sensory, which is the lights being too bright or making noise, or just the feeling of their clothes being itchy, and all of these things are things that they're dealing with that you may not know about, but they're dealing with it, and it's really distracting for them, and it can be really frustrating. It can even be painful. It can impact their abilities to understand the material. So knowing whether or not they're actually being impacted by the cognitive disability side of it is really important for teachers. They should know if a kid has a difficulty with reading or writing because they have Asperger's. They can also have that. And also reading comprehension is really tough because they have a hard time with anything that's not like rote material, which is like regurgitating information is really, anything that's beyond just giving facts is tough for them.